It started with a missing line item. Just a simple discrepancy in a Coyote Pass ledger. Something so small it could have slipped right past anyone who wasn't looking. But Janelle was. She'd been organizing some of the leftover paperwork from her shared accounts with Kody.
I just want the ability to see my children all the time. And to be frank, it wouldn't hurt me to see my wives every day either. Is the idea of living in one house really special to me? Is it worth some sacrifices to me? Yeah, it is.
Trying to tidy up the mess after everything fell apart, and in that quiet solo moment, no cameras, no producers, she spotted it. A flagged note from an outside accountant she had hired to help review what she thought was family property. The note was blunt. One lot unreported, listed solely under Kody W. Brown. Valuation $500,000, not reflected in previous disclosures. Janelle stared at it, numb. For a moment she thought it had to be a mistake, but as she flipped through the related folders, the puzzle pieces started snapping into place. This wasn't a shared family parcel. It wasn't one of the 4 equally distributed plots they'd supposedly agreed on. This was something different, tucked away, undocumented in the family's original plan, and worst of all, it had Kody's name and no one else's.
Welcome to my house.
According to insiders close to the family, Janelle was absolutely blindsided. She'd been the one defending that land, working with the planners, walking the rocky slopes, even dreaming of building a little container home someday. And now she was realizing that Kody might have carved out a slice of that land for himself all along.
He puts this picture of this living room up, and I'm like, what is this? It's his house? What does that mean?
Not for the family, not for Robyn, not even for the kids, just for Kody. A private retirement lot stashed like a golden parachute behind the scenes. And if that wasn't enough, the audit trail suggested he'd been quietly funding it, bit by bit, through years of small account transfers. From where? That's what Janelle wanted to know. And allegedly, some of those deposits traced back to the shared family LLC she thought they'd dissolved.
I'm looking a little bit at my sister wives to look for any kind of awareness. Do they know what's going on? Because I sure don't.
So, and here we go.
Holy cow, he's trying to get us into one house. He's really trying to do it.
The moment it clicked, something inside Janelle snapped. She called Christine immediately, nearly midnight, her voice tight, furious, almost shaking. Christine thought it was just a catch-up call, maybe about the kids. But then Janelle said one sentence that stopped her cold. I think he's been hiding land, and I think we've been paying for it. Christine didn't even wait for another word. Send me everything, she said, right now. And that's exactly what Janelle did. Every printout, every scan, every folder she'd been quietly building in the background. Because if what they were seeing was real, then the whole narrative about how the land was divided, the story Kody sold to them and to viewers, might have been a calculated cover for something much bigger.
Bottom line, I think the biggest reason why I don't really want to live all in one big house, I just like who I am more now than who I was in Utah or any other time.
There's my living room and my kitchen.
So are we looking
And my
in
loft.
here now?
Yeah, we're
Or from the big
looking
window?
in from the big window now, and you can see where we walk out to the deck right here.
And we're all just gonna share one big house again?
And that's when Christine asked the question neither of them wanted to say out loud. What if this was his plan from the very beginning? Christine didn't sleep that night. She stayed up combing through the files Janelle had sent, page after page of county records, floor plan sketches, dated survey maps, and strange legal phrases like sole deed ownership. One thing became obvious. This lot wasn't something Kody stumbled into. It had been positioned from the beginning. The most secluded parcel, tucked away on the far edge of Coyote Pass, right where the land dipped down into a gentle slope with views of the Arizona hills. It had its own driveway access and enough space for a private gate, perfect for someone who didn't want drop-ins, someone planning to live alone.
This house it's supposed to be one house, so it has one entrance. To the left, you'd have Robyn and Janelle, and then in the middle would be my house. And then to the right, you'd have Mary and Christine.
Never have I ever heard of a husband who has plural wives, who has a plural family, ever having his own home. And see, I would never put up with that. I'd be like, oh, I'm sorry, you signed up for this. Just like they tell me, well, you signed up for this. Well, you signed up for this. You don't get time alone. Sorry, dude.
And suddenly, the one house pitch came roaring back into focus. The big mansion Kody had once pushed, the "we'll all be under one roof" speech had seemed bizarre even at the time. But now, Christine saw it differently. The original plan was never truly about unity. It was camouflage, a way for Kody to appear invested in the family while quietly engineering an exit route. Because when the wives pushed back, that whole one-house fantasy conveniently collapsed, and instead of negotiating a true shared future, Kody pivoted. He divided the land and, according to these new findings, kept the best piece for himself.
He's forgotten who his kids are. And he's forgotten who he's married to, because why is everything white? That's going to be ruined in 1 week. And I'm looking at it already and going, it's white and it's not big enough.
Back then, Janelle had been vocal in defense of the land. She even moved into an RV to stay close, treating it like sacred family ground. And now here she was, uncovering evidence that her devotion might have helped Kody secure a future getaway he never planned to share.
What can I say that's positive? I've got to think of something to say that's positive because I am losing it. Do not want to live in one big house.
Sources say she's been replaying every conversation in her mind. Every time he called the land ours. Every time he said, we'll figure it out together. Allegedly, some of those calls were made while he was already working behind the scenes to title that fifth lot in his own name.
My kitchen, my living room.
It says family room.
Guys, can you please stop?
Robyn's kitchen, Janelle's kitchen, Christine's kitchen, Mary's kitchen, okay? Each mom specifically needs her own privacy, completely. So the walls between each section will be block. The house will end up being a block house with an interior wall that's block, literally separating each mom's quarters.
Are you open for questions yet?
Really not.
Okay.
I want all the thoughts to be held for just a second, okay?
Christine kept circling back to one detail, the original floor plan from the one-house pitch. On paper, it looked like everyone had their own wing, their own privacy, their own kitchens. But Kody's section? He didn't label it like the others. His area wasn't Kody and Robyn. It wasn't even Dad's room. It was simply labeled My House. And tucked in the corner of that space, a 10-bay garage. At the time, it had seemed like a vanity feature, just Kody being extra. But now, in the light of this hidden fifth lot, it looked more like a prototype. A trial run for the compound he eventually wanted just for himself. And the scariest part, if Christine and Janelle were right, Kody hadn't just taken the land. He had done it while everyone was watching, under the illusion of fairness, of unity, of healing the family. So what else had he hidden? The next morning, Christine showed up on Janelle's doorstep, suitcase in hand. I want to see it in person, she said, waving the printouts. There was no production crew, no makeup team, just two women standing in the Arizona sun, with manila folders and decades of betrayal crackling between them. Janelle took her out to the porch, where they laid everything out on the table. A land survey, a deed transfer, an escrow note with only Kody's name, and a tax document from the county dated just after Christine had left the family, timed so perfectly it made Christine's stomach drop. She looked up at Janelle and said, so while we were grieving the collapse of this family, he was already locking in his exit plan. As they pored over the pages, one particular document stuck out, a series of bank transfers from a shared Brown family account, moving in round numbers, $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 at a time, to an LLC neither woman recognized. That LLC, they soon discovered, was listed as the buyer for the parcel that now carried only Kody's name. Allegedly, the LLC was a holding company Kody had set up without ever mentioning it to the rest of the family. Even worse, the address attached to the LLC led straight to a P.O. box in Flagstaff, the same one used for his solo business filings. The year Christine left, Christine didn't even bother pretending to be surprised. I knew he was done with us long before he said it out loud, she told Janelle, but I didn't think he'd be this calculated. What stunned them both wasn't just the secrecy, it was the sloppiness. Kody had always fancied himself strategic, but in these papers, the cracks were obvious. He hadn't covered his tracks nearly as well as he thought. And now, with every circled name and highlighted figure, Janelle and Christine were watching the unraveling of his narrative, one that painted him as the heartbroken patriarch left behind. They knew confronting him would be a powder keg, so Christine made a call to Mary, because if anyone deserved to know what had allegedly been siphoned out of the family pot, it was the woman who'd been strung along with broken promises and maybe someday reassurances. When Mary picked up and heard Christine say, "We found something buried in the Coyote Pass deal," she didn't ask for an explanation. She just said, "I'll be there by dinner." The three women hadn't stood united in years, but now with these documents on the table, it felt like something bigger was forming, not just clarity but consensus. And they weren't the only ones watching, because according to a source close to production, someone else had been quietly tipped off. The name that kept coming up in their conversations wasn't Robyn, it was Kody's father. All three women, Christine, Janelle, and Mary, had long heard the stories about how Kody idolized his dad, especially the part where he retired from polygamy without ever formally announcing it. Allegedly, Kody's father built a small, isolated house for one of his wives, then just stopped showing up. The legend was that once the kids were grown and the pressure to perform polygamy eased, he simply retreated into that home and let the rest of the family unravel on its own. And the more they looked at Kody's paper trail, the more it mirrored that exact trajectory. Mary was the one who brought it up. "This is the same pattern," she said, pointing to the plot in question. "He watched his dad pull this, and now he thinks it's normal. But back then, at least there wasn't a reality show involved. It sent a chill down Christine's spine. Because when Kody first pitched the one-house idea, he wasn't just presenting a floor plan. He was staging the beginning of his slow exit, wrapped in language about unity and healing, but constructed entirely around his own comfort. Even the location of his wing in the proposed mansion, central sun-facing, oversized, was designed for maximum separation without any of the guilt. Looking back, Christine realized the biggest red flag hadn't been the pitch itself, it was how resistant he was to feedback. Anytime one of the wives pushed back, especially about privacy or the kids needing space, Kody got visibly agitated. "Just trust me," he'd said over and over. But now it was painfully clear that trusting him meant letting him disappear behind a curtain of half-truths and drawn blinds. He didn't want a house full of family, Christine muttered. He wanted a bunker, Janelle quietly added, and he wanted us to build it for him. That's when Mary brought up something none of them had considered. According to her, Kody had made several quiet trips to the title office around the same time the family was debating whether to build or sell. "He told me he was just checking on paperwork," she said. "Now I wonder if he was filing something behind our backs." That sparked a flurry of new questions. Had he already earmarked the 5th lot as his private property long before the others knew it existed? Had he been shifting funds to secure it even while pretending they were all figuring it out together? The women agreed. They needed legal advice. Not to sue, not yet, but to understand what Kody could actually do with that land. Because if it was titled solely in his name, and if family funds had helped secure it, there might be a paper trail strong enough to raise real legal issues. And as they packed up their folders, one of their phones buzzed, a text from a number none of them had saved. But the message was short, and it stopped them cold. "I know what he's doing. Meet me." It was from someone they hadn't heard from in years, a former crew member who'd quietly left production midway through filming season 17. He never made a scene, never posted online, just disappeared from the Sister Wives universe. But now, here he was, reaching out in the middle of a scandal. Christine read the message aloud. "I know what he's doing. Meet me." No context, no name, just that. Janelle texted back, cautious but curious. "Why now?" The response came instantly. "Because you finally found the land. I thought you never would." The women agreed to meet him in a public place the next day, a quiet cafe just outside Flagstaff where nobody asked questions and everyone minded their own business. When the man arrived, he looked worn down, older, thinner, quieter. He sat down and placed a manila envelope on the table. "This is from the season that never aired," he said. "Your one-house meeting. The raw footage, not the edit." Inside were stills from that pitch session, screenshots and floor plan scans that production had archived. But these weren't the sanitized shots that made it onto television. These were annotated copies, scribbled with production notes. And on Kody's proposed blueprint, there it was again. "My house," in bold block letters. Not dad's suite, not family living room. Just "my house," and according to the timestamp on the notes, that version had been printed days before he ever gathered the family for the big reveal. He'd already made the decision, the crew member said. "We were told to shoot it like a brainstorming session, but it wasn't. He wasn't asking for input, he was showing you the exit plan." That word again, exit. And as they dug through the envelope, more notes began to surface. Comments from producers who allegedly questioned the optics. One sticky note, stuck to a copy of the blueprint, read, "Doesn't this isolate him from everyone?" Another read, "Christine looks visibly uncomfortable. Should we address?" But nothing ever made it to air. The storyline got folded into the usual chaos, and viewers never saw the signs. Christine looked over at Janelle and Mary. "He didn't just spring this on us. He rehearsed it. He mapped it. He designed an escape home and called it Unity." That was when Janelle stood up. "We need to go to Coyote Pass. Now." They drove out as the sun dipped low across the hills, the sky bleeding orange and purple behind the tree line. When they reached the disputed lot, everything looked exactly as it always had. Quiet, empty, peaceful. But then Christine noticed something new. Fresh tire tracks, cutting deep into the dirt road that led only to that parcel. Someone had been there recently, and as Mary stepped out of the car, she spotted something half buried in the brush near the fence. A white placard, knocked over by the wind. It read, "Future Site, Kody Brown Custom Build." The silence was deafening. For a moment, the three women just stood there, staring at the fallen placard like it had been dipped in betrayal. Future Site, Kody Brown Custom Build. It wasn't speculation anymore. It wasn't a guess. It was a declaration, one that had been quite literally staked into the soil. Christine knelt down, brushing away the dust and debris, and there at the bottom corner was a date, barely visible but unmistakable, printed 6 months after she left the family. That timing was no accident. The blueprints, the title transfer, the LLC trail, they all lined up. And now they had physical proof that Kody had carved out this land not just for future development, but allegedly for himself, and himself alone. Janelle pulled out her phone and began snapping pictures. Every angle, every tire track, every inch of the lot that now looked more like a secret construction site than a shared family investment. And as she walked the perimeter, she spotted something else. Stakes in the ground marked with colored flags, property markers, preliminary groundwork. This wasn't just a vague idea in Kody's head. According to insiders close to the local planning board, an inquiry had been submitted months ago about zoning adjustments for a private dwelling on Lot 5, under the same LLC they discovered in the audit. Christine turned to Mary, her voice tight. If he's this far along and no one told us, what else is already in motion? It wasn't just a betrayal of trust anymore. It was the betrayal of resources, years of shared effort, and the illusion that Coyote Pass was ever meant to reunite the family. And while Mary had often kept quiet during past family fractures, this time her voice didn't waver. He lied, she said, to all of us. And now he's building the lie. The timing couldn't be worse. Just as TLC had begun promoting the next season, banking on storylines of healing and reflection, the real narrative was unraveling, off-camera but more potent than anything a showrunner could script. Allegedly, Kody had even been spotted by a viewer at a building supply depot just 2 weeks earlier, loading lumber into the back of his truck. And when that fan asked what project he was working on, Kody reportedly smirked and said, "Just setting up something peaceful, for when things get quieter." Peaceful for who? As the sun disappeared behind the hill, Christine snapped one final photo of the placard and texted it to her attorney. She added no caption, just the image. 10 minutes later, she received a response. "We need to talk tomorrow." And just as they began heading back to the car, Janelle's phone buzzed. This time, it wasn't a text. It was a PayPal notification, a payment from the family LLC account, but not to her, not to Christine, not to Mary. It had been rerouted to Kody's LLC. Again, Janelle stared at the notification in disbelief. It wasn't a huge amount, just under $3,000, but the timing was a slap in the face. Less than an hour after standing on the very dirt he planned to claim for himself, here was another quiet digital breadcrumb leading straight to Kody's private LLC, and the account it came from? Still listed under the family business entity they had all agreed to dissolve when the marriages ended. Or so they thought. Christine leaned over her shoulder and said exactly what Janelle was thinking. He's still using the family name to fund his solo future. That was when things shifted from suspicion to outrage. The next morning, Christine's attorney met her at a local office near Flagstaff. Janelle and Mary joined via video call, and together they laid out the entire timeline from the moment Kody pitched the one-house fantasy to the Coyote Pass subdivision, and now the audit trail exposing personal payments and a secret build site. According to the lawyer, if communal funds had indeed been used to secure or prepare a property titled in only one person's name, there could be grounds for a civil dispute. "You may be looking at financial misrepresentation," the attorney said. "Possibly even breach of verbal contract, especially if you can prove there was an expectation of shared ownership." And that's exactly what they intended to prove. But they weren't the only ones reacting. Behind the scenes, insiders whisper that TLC production was thrown into full-on panic mode. Cameras had captured tension and arguments, but none of them knew the extent of what had been brewing off-screen. If litigation was suddenly on the table, filming could grind to a halt. Insurance policies might have to be rewritten. And worse, there was a risk that network executives could be pulled into the mess as potential witnesses if it turned out the show had, even unintentionally, misrepresented the truth about Coyote Pass. One producer allegedly called a 6 a.m. emergency meeting the morning the placard photo surfaced. The subject line? Property crisis. Immediate strategy needed. What was supposed to be a new season centered on rebuilding and reflection now risked spiraling into legal chaos. But for Christine, Janelle, and Mary, the show was the least of their concerns. This was about principle, about all the times Kody insisted they were partners, only to go behind their backs and lay groundwork for a future that excluded them entirely. Robyn, meanwhile, had gone quiet, too quiet, and that's what made Christine nervous. Because if Robyn truly had no idea this fifth lot existed, she'd be livid. But if she already knew and said nothing, well, that was a different kind of betrayal altogether. And just as they were digging deeper, a new voice entered the conversation. This time, not a wife, not a lawyer, not a producer. One of the Brown children had seen the placard post online, and they were ready to talk. The message came through Instagram of all places, a screenshot of the Fallen Future site. Kody Brown custom-build placard had started making the rounds in fan groups, and it didn't take long for the older Brown kids to notice. One of the adult sons, whose name we'll keep private for now, allegedly reached out to Christine with a simple DM. "That's the lot Dad told me he was saving for when everything settles down. He never said it was family property." Christine froze. It wasn't just that Kody had a secret plan. He had spoken about it openly to at least one child, while telling the wives something entirely different. According to sources close to the kids, that wasn't the only inconsistency. Over the past year, Kody had allegedly told more than one of his adult children that he hoped to eventually build a quiet place where they could come visit him if they wanted. Not visit us, not visit the family, just him. Janelle got on the phone immediately with her oldest son, who confirmed that he too had heard Kody mention a retreat space as early as 2 years ago. Around the same time, Christine packed her bags and left for Utah. It was subtle then, a casual aside, but now in hindsight, it was chilling. Because if Kody had been laying emotional groundwork with his kids for a solo future, all while stringing the wives along with empty promises about shared land and healing, the depth of manipulation ran far deeper than anyone suspected. Christine kept rereading one of the messages from a child she helped raise. It said, "Honestly, I thought you knew." He made it sound like everyone was fine with it. The fanbase exploded. Hashtags like Coyote Cover-Up and Kody Cash Out began trending as amateur sleuths pulled county records, drone footage, and old TV screen grabs to stitch together the evolving map of Coyote Pass. And at the center of every single theory sat one burning question. When did Kody stop pretending this was a family compound and start building his personal fortress? Even Mary, long accustomed to being left out, was shaken. She told one close friend, according to insiders, that this revelation felt like the final nail. "I defended that man more times than I can count," she reportedly said, "and he was carving out a future without me the entire time." By now, the group chat between the three women had turned into a strategy thread, sharing screenshots, phone calls, even drafts of a public joint statement. They weren't rushing to release it yet, but make no mistake, they were preparing. And just as they began to map out their next move, Robyn broke her silence. But what she said didn't sound like denial. It sounded like damage control. Robyn's statement didn't come through the show. It wasn't a confessional, a sit-down, or even a blog post. It came in the form of a carefully worded voicemail left on Mary's phone late one evening, and insiders say it was anything but casual. "I just want you to know," Robyn reportedly said, "this isn't what I wanted. I didn't know he filed anything under his own name. He told me everything was still being figured out." But according to Mary, there was something strained in her voice, controlled, rehearsed. Not quite panicked, but definitely defensive. And the real kicker? She never once used the word we. Not "we're figuring it out," not "we'll fix this." Just him. Christine and Janelle listened to the message on speaker, and their faces said it all. Robyn might not have pulled the strings herself, but it was becoming harder and harder to believe she didn't know they were being pulled. After all, this was the woman who'd always been in the loop, the one who knew when cameras were coming, who had production notes printed before the other wives had even seen a call sheet. And yet somehow she missed an entire land transfer that happened under her roof. Rumors began swirling that Robyn had allegedly signed something, possibly a secondary document filed alongside Kody's LLC paperwork. Nothing confirmed, but the speculation was enough to spark another flurry of online sleuthing. Fans dug up clips from past seasons showing Robyn walking the land with Kody, pointing at the same secluded corner that now bore his name. One fan even posted a screen capture from a scene in season 17 where Robyn says, "That's where I think the view is best." It matched the elevation markers on Kody's lot exactly. Janelle, never one to mince words, allegedly told a close friend if she didn't know, it's because she didn't want to, and Christine, she was done playing polite. According to someone who overheard a recent call, Christine said flat out she wanted to make every day a honeymoon, but now she can live with the consequences. Because at this point, it wasn't just a matter of who knew what, it was about who benefited. If Kody had truly planned to vanish into a custom build while leaving the rest of the family floundering with splintered lots and unresolved titles, then Robyn, by virtue of proximity and silence, stood to gain more than anyone. A peaceful, camera-free life in a custom home, paid for by years of shared income and disguised under the pretense of unity. But just when Christine thought the drama had hit its peak, her attorney called with a new twist. There had been a recent county permit application signed, submitted, and approved for private residential construction, filed in the name of Kody's LLC. The permit wasn't punitive, it had been approved and fast-tracked. According to public records accessed by Christine's attorney, the application described a single-family residence, roughly 3,500 square feet, with a 10-car garage and an elevated deck designed to maximize mountain views. And while the documents didn't list Kody's personal name, they carried the full legal signature of the LLC he'd been funneling money into. It was the last puzzle piece. Kody hadn't just thought about building his own compound, he had begun the process. Quietly, strategically, and according to sources familiar with local zoning, ground could break as soon as the fall. Christine, Janelle, and Mary sat around Janelle's kitchen table, the printed permit resting between them like a live wire. It was Mary who finally said what none of them had dared voice. This was never about healing. It was about control, and now that control had slipped out into the open, Every time Kody had deflected their concerns, claimed they were making drama, or called Christine a quitter, it had been while he was building a future he had no intention of sharing. Janelle looked exhausted, not just physically, but emotionally drained from years of trying to make peace with a man who had been mapping his escape since the first foundation crack appeared in their marriages. And the most cutting part? He almost pulled it off. If that audit had never happened, if Janelle hadn't asked for help reviewing old accounts, he might have built the entire retreat right under their noses. He could have claimed it was temporary, or for the grandkids, or just something the family can use down the line. But the financial trail tells a different story. This wasn't for anyone but himself. Not for Robyn, not for the kids, not for the wives who had held his family together while he planned his solo landing. As of this moment, sources say the three women are weighing their options. A formal complaint could be filed within the month. And while none of them have confirmed legal action, their private discussions now include phrases like breach of verbal agreement, intentional misrepresentation, and jointly earned equity. The story they were sold, that Coyote Pass was a blank slate for a new beginning, had morphed into something else entirely, a monument to ego, a testament to betrayal, a $500,000 fortress of solitude, bankrolled by people he pushed away. So now the question becomes, will Kody come clean before he's forced to, or will the women who built that family and financed that land beat him to it? Because this time, the proof isn't in the drama, it's in the deed. Let us know in the comments. Do you think Kody always planned to leave everyone behind? And should Janelle, Christine, and Mary take him to court? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned. The next video on your screen is waiting. And trust me, you won't want to miss it.